Hello, everyone. Molly Pompidith here with the SOAR Community Network and co-founder of the SOAR Community Nebula. As you may or may not know, we've just launched a global initiative where we are bringing conscious leaders from all walks of life to one place, an online community called SOAR Community Nebula. And these leaders are connecting to learn, to teach, to collaborate, and the goal is to create a better world for all. Our intention this year is to interview 1,000 champions of change and to raise awareness that altruism is profitable. Being more mindful and compassionate does create stronger communities, and doing good is a good thing for all humankind. So today we're interviewing Kirk, and we really appreciate that you are with us today. Thank you for also saying yes to this initiative and movement. And I'd love for you to introduce yourself, who you are, and what do you do in the world professionally before we dive into all the good work you do with your heart.
Okay. Well, hey, first of all, thank you for giving me a chance to jump on with you and kind of share our stories and some of the influences that I've experienced in my life. And so you want me to introduce myself and
Please do, yes. And what are you doing in terms of your work and your business right now? And then we'll talk more about just kind of how life has afforded you the opportunity to be a community builder. So before we do that, I do want people to know, what do you do?
Okay. So my name is Kirk. I'm the CEO of Foresight CFO, and what we do is we work with the those top 2% of CEOs who are really focused on growing the top line and building a business that has more community impact. So we do that through high growth CFO work and outsourced accounting. So it's really how to use the numbers to identify growth options, make the right choice, and then use the financials every month as a scoreboard to follow through. So that at a high level, that's what we do.
Mm-hmm. Why do you care so much that people have your services? I mean, the market that you serve, who is it that you ultimately want to or are impacting today?
Well, I've been in building businesses about 28 years now, and now I have 4 other partners and pretty large staff doing this type of work. But over the years, I've witnessed the hardship to both, business owners and their employees. If the financials aren't working out right, they're not able to fulfill their mission and do what they do well for their customers. And people, employees who did what they were asked to do are laid off or not compensated in a way where they can take care of their families. So at the foundation of all this, doing well financially means that people can fulfill their mission and, live respectable lives. So that part of our why, that's what motivates us to go do what we do every day.
Very cool. Well, can you share with our audience kind of an experience in your life, Kirk, where you've been moved or your perspective has been changed? Someone who's come in, maybe not even someone, but an event in your life that shifted your way of being, your way of thinking, and kind of change your trajectory for where do you stand in the world? What do you stand for?
Yeah, so, interesting enough, it was really outside of my business experience. Early on, my early 20s, the first Gulf War, I joined the military, always wanted to serve, and it was a sergeant by the name of Joseph Sharp who really influenced me because, there I am, I'm in my formative years, and I'm going from what I knew growing up in Houston, Texas, to a very different life where in the military, you're part of a team, you're expected to bring out the best in others, and no matter what the challenges are, you got to, overcome those challenges to meet certain objectives. So it was really Joseph Sharp, he was a mentor. He watched out for me. He recognized what I was strong at versus where I needed more work. And actively, he took me under his wings and cultivated my skills so that I was a better team member to help us get certain outcomes. So he was highly influential, and he did it. You think about the sergeant, kind of the movies, they're rigid and they're hard. But that wasn't Joseph Sharp. I mean, this is the guy who was quiet And he was very deliberate when he spoke or did something. It was with a purpose, and it was always compassionate. It was always for the, he had a deep sense of respect for the people he was working with, both, in our unit and in the local country that we were in.
That's really powerful. It kind of answers my next question, is when you think of a community builder or a champion for change, what characteristics do they hold? What kind of people are they? What kind of mindset must they have for them to create some type of profound connection or shift in another person's, psyche or way of being? And you answered a little bit, but are there other characteristics in terms of other people in your life where you look at them and you say, man, they're really good people. They're doing some great things that are outside of their own basic needs, right? So what else comes to mind?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, so I'm still thinking about Joseph Sharp. I mean, what stands out is he's modest, right? He was never self-promoting, right? He would never put his own interests ahead of somebody else's on his team, even the people he served. And that really stands out, that he actually cared, like in a business sense, how it translated was really caring about their customer's best interest ahead of his own. And he was the kind of guy that he literally impacted thousands of lives in a very fundamental way. And if you met him, you would never know it, because he's not tooting his own horn. So that's something that really stands out to me. I really, from a community building, a champion standpoint, those qualities stood out in Joseph Sharp.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk now about causes that you care about, or things that you're doing, or whether it's aligned with the services you offer, but goes beyond just the actual product sales and promotions and getting new clients, but really the type of impact that you're making or desire to make. What causes matter to you? What kind of change do you want to see in the world?
Yeah, so you can imagine, I'm not sure if you've heard about the group called Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship.
I have heard of them.
Have you heard about them? To me, they're phenomenal. So in addition to being the CEO at Foresight, helping private companies really do better for everyone's benefit, I teach graduate students at Georgetown. So teaching is kind of part of my DNA. And so NFT, Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, it's a perfect synergy. I love building businesses, and the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship is what it is. It's an anti-high school dropout program, whereby by teaching these high school students that are at risk of dropping out entrepreneurship, that they can actually do it themselves, and they can make their own job. Through business, they can make their own life. It's a perfect synergy between what I do in the teaching world at Georgetown and what I do at Foresight building businesses. So I volunteer, and some of my team members volunteer to literally help students come up with their business plan and then implement it and compete for funding to actually go do their business. So that's just something I can't tell you how much I love being part of.
That's great. That's great. There was a program for young women, young girls in high school. A few of us women entrepreneurs several years ago volunteered to teach entrepreneur to them, because they were also high risk. And we were talking about, three warnings already in school before they get expelled, or parents are addicted to drugs, or they're living basically in the car, but they have to go to school to eat. And we're talking about those types of situations, and watching them in these classes when we're teaching entrepreneurship, just seeing a possibility that just wasn't in the context of their world, just helped to shape these new minds and gave them hope and possibility. Wait, this is not the only path that I have, right? Yeah. There's other ways of thinking and shifting to pursue opportunities. So I love it. It resonates with my heart, and I love what you're doing there.
And you never know what conversation or what interaction is going to really make a difference. But it's sometimes the funniest things you hear years later. Hey, remember when this happened? And maybe in my case, I really didn't remember, but tell me what happened. and
Yeah.
it's a life changer. So it's pretty, it's great that you're doing that.
Well, when you were talking about the things that you care about and what you do and what you're teaching and volunteering your time to do, why do you do it? What does it do for you?
Yeah, I don't know. That's like, why do I love anything that I love? I mean, I think on some level we're wired that way. On other level, I've been inspired by certain people. Like we talked about Joseph Sharp, but there's been other good people who, took a moment out of their life to help me out, like Dave Laposada in the business world. So maybe it's just something that passing the torch. I mean, for those who've experienced something like that, it's a natural thing to want to, go do the same for others, whether we know them or not. So maybe that's it.
I love that, passing the torch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, talk to me now about a saying or a philosophy or a quote that just keeps you going, empowers you, gives you energy to continue to contribute to society, to your community, in the way that you do.
Yeah, I can tell you one of those books, probably, I don't know, high school or early college, something like that. Have you ever heard of the book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl?
Yes.
Oh my God. And this is a guy who survived. He lost, his wife, his family, everybody. He survived Auschwitz, Nazi Germany, where people were being sentenced to death by the flick of a finger of somebody they didn't know. He survived that by really, instead of focusing on his own misery and his loss, by just helping the people who were right there with him in that moment. And so he came out with a whole, psychology approach. But the kind of things that stick with me is, he talks about the meaning of life goes to our relationships, the work that we do, and the meaning that we give things that we sacrifice for. And that just really, at just different points of my life, it really just kind of grounds me. What matters, for the things that we're doing. So in our case, we're helping businesses do better so that people can have their freedom to do what they really care about.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that's a great point of reference too. I mean, just reading that is it's heavy.
Oh my God.
It's emotional. It's, you have to put it down because you need to breathe through some of the things that he's sharing. But when you look at just the perspective one has to have, right?
I mean, so much compassion. I mean, just to go through, I could be at Auschwitz, thinking about somebody else is suffering right next to you. I mean, like,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, last but not least, again, thank you so much for taking the time. I know that you have a very active schedule with all the incredible companies that you're supporting and the young minds that you're supporting, in terms of entrepreneurship. How can people learn more about you, your work, and also perhaps the cause, an organization like the one that you're teaching here? How can people learn about it, volunteer for it, etc.?
Well, there's a couple of ways. You can look me up on LinkedIn, Kirk W. McLaren. You'll see Foresight CFO and the 2%. I'm an author of the book, The 2% CEO Club. So that'll pop out. You could email me, kirk@foresightcfo.com. And if you really want to get personal and invite me to do a workshop for a business group that you're part of, and we love getting out in front of people and really making that connection.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. And for those out there who are interested, please do check out Kirk, connect with him. He is very approachable and humble and modest and all those things that you mentioned about your mentor. That's who you are, and so I appreciate that about you. For those that are interested, you're very welcome. Interested in learning more about the work that we do, please go to soarcommunitynetwork.com. If you're interested in being interviewed or referring someone who is a community champion or a change agent in your life, in your world, please email us at info@soarcommunitynetwork.com and check out our new initiative, nebula.soarcommunitynetwork.com. Thank you so much. And Kirk, we'll be talking to you real soon. Thanks for your time today.
Good things ahead.